I was raised up in a family that was not moderately violent, but probably excessively so, and outside of the church setting, and didn't really ever hear God's name except for if it were taken in vain in my house. I met my wife when I was in high school, and she was a Christian when I met her, but it wasn't long before I brought her quite a distance from any kind of godly stance on any issue. We got married in 1982, and as I was taught in my own violent household, the household I established was also full of violence. We moved into this house 10 years ago. I made friends pretty quickly with the guy that lives over across the street, and we drank heavily together most days. And my neighbor Willie, he would always walk up and down the street for exercise, and he'd walk by us and always exchange something, have something good to say. And I would sit over there drinking with my friend, and we would just malign him and Willie and his family in various ways. And I couldn't imagine that he wasn't hearing the curses that I was directing his way. But every day that I saw him for 3 years, he had something nice to say to me, despite everything that I'd said to him. Strange thing happened at my school. Overhead projector screen fell out of my ceiling, and it swung down at me, and I put my arm up to block it, and it broke my arm. And when I drove my truck home, I got out and was walking in with a cast on my arm, and Willie came over my yard, and he just said, "Neighbor, what happened to you?" He was very gentle person, and I told him it was none of his business, and stay in his own yard. And I walked on into my house, and I heard something outside my bedroom window over there. And I got up and looked out, and it was the old man from next door. He's over here mowing my yard. And I walked out here and caught Willie over there. His back was to me, and I grabbed him by the arm and turned him around, and I said, "I thought I told you stay out of my yard." And something really, really strange happened to me at that moment. And Willie, with all his gentleness, it's like he looked right inside of me. He said, "Neighbor, I'm going to mow your yard." The deal is very much outside my experience that someone would exchange kindness for what I'd given him. The next Saturday, same thing again. Heard the lawnmower, and the old man outside my house mowing my yard. He did the same thing the next week, and then he came to my door, and he said, "Would you do me a favor? I'm going out of town, and I want to know if you'd keep an eye on my house." I said, "Sure, no problem," because I thought I had it figured out. I thought maybe it was because he wanted something from me. That's why he was doing this. And I thought, well, at least the old man won't be over here mowing my yard next week and making me uncomfortable. The next Saturday, and it was a young guy out here mowing my yard. Looked kind of vaguely familiar, but I walked out here and I said, "Who are you and what are you doing in my yard?" He said, "My name's Tim. Your next door neighbor is my dad, and he told me I'm supposed to mow your yard while he's out of town." A considerable amount of time had passed. I got a letter, a package in the mail from my brother in Ruidosa. he started off the letter and just said, "Dear Blake, I love you." And he said, "I know you have a lot of questions about things we were taught growing up, and just read this book. It'll answer your questions." And I picked up that book. It's a book Max Lucado wrote called God Came Near. And I sat down and read that book cover to cover right then, and I began to cry because I understood that reading that book, that Jesus came here for people who needed Him. People like me. And I got really excited at the same time because I knew one of my neighbors had been mowing my yard those months back. And I came outside and ran over to Willie's yard. And Willie was always out there taking care of his yard. It always looked great. And I told him, "Willie, I know why you mowed my yard." And he said, "Oh, why is that?" And I said, it's because you're a Christian. And he just started to cry, and he hugged me. And I cried. My life's really different. I lived for 32 years without Jesus, and I know what a jerk I am without Him. And I struggled before just to have some kind of life. It was hopeless. And the biggest difference in my life now is the forgiveness of God, the forgiveness that my family holds out to me, and the families I have in a church, and the way that people, I know what love is.